Thank you so much, Senator Van Hollen. I certainly so much appreciate your leadership on the Appropriations Subcommittee. And Senator Warner, welcome to the subcommittee. It is great to have you, given your deep interest and commitment to supporting CDFIs. So thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you, Chair Smith. And really appreciate the fact that you and Senator Rounds are holding this hearing, and thank the panel. I think CDFIs, I think we've all, at least I, speaking personally, have come to much more fully understand the incredibly valuable role they play in our financial system, and frankly, the opportunity to expand that role. And I want to thank Senator Van Hollen for his work as an appropriator to make sure that we take this moment and continue to expand it. I am very proud of the fact that so many of us on this committee in a bipartisan way worked so hard to get that $12 billion that came out of the Jobs and Neighborhood Investment Act into the last COVID package. And I think, as Senator Van Hollen pointed out in his line of questioning, the rollout's been pretty darn good. The grants went out the first round, the second round will come out later. The fact that we had close to, almost $13 billion of requests on the ESIP program. And so we were way oversubscribed on that item. Shows, I think, the capacity of this group of institutions, obviously serving underserved communities. And, I think we need to work as well. What Senator Cortez Masto talked about is how do we expand this, the network of CDFIs in a much, much greater way. So I want to hit 2 or 3 points pretty quickly. First, I'm going to start with Mr. Altman. I'm really interested in this whole idea of, can we take CDFI portfolios and securitize them? I think that's the next big step we need to move to. I've had conversations with the Fed. I know, Mr. Altman, that CRF, your entity, has done some securitizations in the past. I think, what else should we be able to do? What tools do you need? Additional tools from Congress? Do we need to continue to nudge the Fed? How can we make, either on an individual basis or on an ability to aggregate pools of loans from a variety of CDFIs into a more easily securitization process?
Thank you for that question. We actually did pioneer the use of securitization as a tool early on, and we've securitized through 21 different issues, securitized mostly small business and nonprofit loans, but also close to $100 million in multifamily affordable housing loans. And those securities, at least the latter ones that we did, were large enough to be rated by Standard & Poor's, something that people said will never happen. And this was all done without any particular government support other than maintaining compliance with tax laws and so forth. After the crash, the market for securities just collapsed, and we had to move in a different direction. And then the accounting rules changed and required, even though securitizations are bankruptcy remote, usually done through special purpose vehicles, it required the special purpose vehicles to come back onto the balance sheets of the issuer. So that made it virtually impossible for an organization like CRF to continue to securitize without having a much larger balance sheet. And so we moved to other tools because the balance sheet just wasn't there to support it from an accounting perspective. And I think that's one of the issues that needs to be examined. The second issue is securitization works the best when the assets that are being securitized are standardized. And CDFIs in general, and we certainly came to the market recognizing this, CDFIs in general do their own thing. And the ability to create standardized products that can be fed into a security is still a challenge. But once we have standardized products, and I will use the PPP product as a prime example, that was a standardized product across the entire industry, and it became very liquid. And so CDFIs need to have the ability to, if they want to securitize, to create products that are the same across different CDFIs. Not that all their products are the same, but that the ones that they want to securitize can be put into facilities that are of like benefit. So those would be my basic comments.
Well, we'd like to keep working with you on this because we've had conversations with both the Fed on potentially creating SPVs and with private capital. And that's where I want to move my last question to, which is, how do we better leverage private capital? And I'd love to hear from Mr. Holtzclaw as well on this and the balance of the panel, because you there's a lot of talk from private capital about wanting to get in. I know some large entities like Google have been pretty creative in using their balance sheet, but I think that could help us on securitization. And I also want to make sure that some of the CDFIs and MDIs in particular that are most in need couldn't meet all the requirements even to get the ESIP program. So is there also a way where some of this private capital that might be more at risk can help smaller and other entities? So I know my time's up, Madam Chair, but if I could have the panel answer on how we can better leverage private capital, I'd love to hear from everybody, starting with Mr. Holtzclaw.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your past support for CFIs. I think that in the wake of the racial and social reckoning that we had last year coming from the George Floyd, I think you saw this influx of private corporations coming together and making deposits into MDIs and others. I think that as well as foundations. I think that I would say one way to increase it is to look at these small and emerging CDFIs again, to try to get some of those, like you said, those MDIs who aren't able to do ECIP, to be able to get and foster those relationships between them as well. Because again, we have this gap where some folks were unable to capitalize off of it and some were not. Some were and some were not. And so I think that just the continuing education and bringing folks together outside of some type of racial and social reckoning to show that CDFIs are here. They're first responders from a financial standpoint, and educating other folks about the smaller and emerging ones, I think will level the playing field from a private investment standpoint.
Others, I know my time's up, but I don't want to. I'm not a subcommittee member, and I don't want to overdo. I will go back to the chair, but Madam Chair, one of the things I hope the subcommittee would look at as well. We know that Lael Brainerd, in her previous role, was leading the efforts on CRA reform. I'd love to get, maybe for the record from the panel, how we can use CRA reform to also help with CDFIs. And thank you and Senator Rounds so much for holding this hearing.
Thank you so much, Senator Warner. And I think those are all great issues to follow up on. Look forward to continuing to work with you on this.